Hi, I'm David Barnes. I enjoyed conducting this webinar that you're about to see with the business leaders at BizEnergize Dallas. In this webinar, we talk about an alignment movie process session that is just perfect for the times that we're going through. And I want to share it with you here today. In this, you will get some new tools to assist and really want to give you an opportunity to try out your own alignment movie process session. We also discussed some other movies that I wasn't expecting, and you'll see some testimonials about how this work has affected others. So I hope you'll join me in watching this video and let me know what you think. We'd love to hear your feedback. Thank you for being here.
David Barnes, most of y'all know David. He is working on helping people find alignment with peace of mind, and he's an expert on peace of mind. He's written 2 books. This is one of them, Taming Your Dragon. This is their first book. He and his business partner, Sue Ann McGregor. And also, they wrote this fatty. It's just commerce. Look how thick that is. There's a lot of great information in here. And one of the reasons there's so much is because they've infused over 700 movies with alignment sessions that can help you learn to, I think of it as reprogramming your brain. But David talks about it in a much better, more eloquent way in terms of alignment. And David, I'm going to just turn it over to you because I'm wanting to hear from you exactly what is this alignment? What does this mean?
Well, thank you, Blake, and thank you, everyone. It's so nice to see these friends here today and all of us trying to figure out how to navigate these times. But what's really humorous is seeing all of us navigate the technology, which has been really quite the challenge. So Blake, if you don't mind, I just got a few quick slides that I want to just use to go over what it is that we do. I know many of you've seen these slides, so I won't be too long on them. And then I'm going to talk to you today about an alignment movie process or an AMP session that is really perfect for the times that we're all dealing with. And it really is really an amazing time that we're living through. And my intent today is to give you a new tool here, and maybe you'd be willing to give it a try to see if it brings you a little bit of relief as we figure out what's the next step for all of us. So I'm going to right now take the screen, Blake, and let's see here.
Please do.
Okay. I'm not being able to share that. Just a second. There we go. Can you all see that?
Yep.
All right, real quickly here. The alignment process is something that Sue Ann McGregor and I really discovered. It was given to us. I mean, there's no other way around it. And when it first happened, I kind of felt weird about it because, you know, I'm a former business guy. I worked at Ford for 10 years and was climbing the ladder there. And then I was an executive at the Dallas Symphony and got myself so burned out, as many of you have heard the story. And then we had this tool, how you could change the resonance of belief patterns by with watching movies. And so we did this work on ourselves and made it available for anyone else. And I know you're thinking, because I hear it all the time, how did you do it yourself? So I'll just cover on a few metaphors to explain how this is possible. But first of all, I want to talk a little bit about belief patterns and emotional patterns. They replicate like the LP grooves on an LP. And you know how it is when you're playing the same song over and over again. Well, we do this with belief patterns, and they're passed down from generation to generations. And it's the same with emotional patterns. So if you're thinking about, well, how is that possible? Well, think about cultures. Think about it, what the Italian culture is predominantly like versus the German culture, or California versus New York. And it's really about how people pass on these resonant patterns at the DNA level. And so let me just explain to you what we've learned about patterns. Whenever something new is created, these energetic patterns continue until recognized and changed. So a real easy example for most of us is to think about what was going on in history when the United States formed the Declaration of Independence. You know, if any of you saw John Adams, You saw that that room where they were signing the Declaration of Independence wasn't some inspiring experience. There was fear, there was disunity, and they were all very much afraid of losing their power. And these patterns at the beginning of anything new, like a country, will continue to replicate. And so think about a marriage, it's the same thing. Think about a business. If you think about certain businesses and how they reflect the patterns of the inventor of the business, so Steve Jobs, for example, in Apple, or Bill Gates in Microsoft, we have a feeling of what their personalities are like, and they replicate throughout the organization and keep getting bigger until recognized and changed. So essentially what we did is we amplified or energized belief statements that align with the desire for a balanced life. We also amplified letting go of the stuff that's getting in the way of balance, that's creating stress, anxiety, fear, and burnout. And why I'm so grateful to this BizEnergize group and all of you that are you're my friends, is that you gave me this platform today to get this information out. For if even just one person watches one of these movies and it brings them relief today, it's on mission for me and what I'm doing for my work. So I get this all the time. How does this work? First of all, when anything that like a phone or a plane, there's things we don't understand how they work, or vitamins, or even gravity, for example. We're not really exactly sure what that's all about, but we still know how to work with it and use it. And that's my intent with this process, is that you trust that it actually works. But I'll give you a couple metaphors of why. First of all, the healing power of prayer. When you're praying for someone, those of us that pray for your mom who's in, Columbus, Ohio, you don't really wonder, did that prayer get to her? There is an awareness or a knowing of the interconnectivity that it gets to her right away. But there's science around the healing power of prayer. And they've done a lot of research with hospitals where a group of people would pray for one floor, and that floor would heal measurably faster than the other 3 floors in the hospital. And that study has been replicated multiple times. You've probably also heard the stories about meditating and focusing on Washington, D.C. And when that happened, crime actually dropped. So there's an interconnectivity, it's quantum that's going on. But since we know how to use prayer, we don't really get caught on how does it really work. There's another way to explain this interconnectivity of us, and it's through social contagion. Those of you that have been around me, you hear me, I always bring it up because I'm absolutely fascinated by it. Because now science has figured out that we are passing emotions and beliefs through networks that they can pinpoint, thanks to the Framingham, Massachusetts Heart Study. And so if you're really curious about this, Google social contagion TED Talk, and you'll see there's a guy from Harvard and there's a guy from Yale, and they're doing some brilliant work. And these beliefs continue to move through networks. Apparently we start smoking together, we stop smoking together, we lose weight together. And so there is something going on now where this we are one connection, science is starting to meet with it. Our work actually helps do something about these belief patterns, and it replicates to your loved ones, it replicates to your coworkers, it replicates to your clients, and you start to change the type of clients that you bring in. So here's another one also that I want to talk about, is we call it the Roger Bannister effect, and we talked about it in our book, It's Just Commerce, Returning Balance to Business. We just really want people to get this. Well, many of you probably know Roger Bannister was the guy that broke the 4-minute mile. Most of you guys know that? And once he did it, I think it was like 10 days later, like 12 guys, something like that. I'm going to get the details wrong, broke it also. And it's because Roger Bannister affected not only the beliefs that this could happen, but it's almost like he uploaded the resonance on how to step into it. And we can see that with all kinds of great art forms. We can see that happening with even basketball, for example. I mean, Michael Jordan, I'm not a basketball aficionado, but I know that Michael Jordan took basketball to a whole new level. And then there's LeBron, and LeBron probably is in a whole different set point. And this is the interconnectivity that's going on with humans that we're starting to really figure out. Our work makes it possible. We had an awareness that if we just uploaded to this Roger Bannister effect, you all would get the benefit from the work that we did. So essentially, what we're doing is helping you bring in balance into what we see as the 5 key areas of life: mental, physical, spiritual, emotional, and energetic. And, many times I get people say, well, what's the energetic thing? I mean, yes, of course, it's human energy body in your body, but it's also the energy of business. It's the energy of money. And many of us, me especially, this happened to me, got really stuck in that one. And I got a quick graphic I'm going to show you that when you get stuck in any one of these, it throws off everything else in balance and really makes life stressful. And in my case, it's meant pretty serious burnout 3 times. So here's the graphic, and take a look at this. So when the energetic here gets out of balance, look what it does to the emotional. I promise you, it messes you up emotionally. But then it also really cuts off your spiritual side. So now you have lost your greatest resource, your GPS system, if you will. And then that starts to affect the mental. And then of course the physical breaks down. And in my case, I was sleeping about 3 hours a night. And I knew this wanted to change. But then you see how they all affect each other in such an elegant way. And so, a lot of the reasons for this is this make it happen culture that we get stuck there, that we're going to have to really force the energetic. And then we'll worry about the mental and the emotional and the physical and that whole spiritual thing once we're successful. And it's not a winning formula for a lot of us. In fact, really, it's only about 1 to 2% that are successful pulling this off. So we call alignment is when you come into balance with the mental, the physical, the spiritual, the emotional, and the energetic. And so, I've been a real someone that's followed thought leaders all my life since I was about 18, and positive thinking was so big to me when I first started. And after doing this work now for 14 years on myself and seeing what happens with my clients, I've come to realize that when you shift the resonance first, doing an AMP movie session, your awareness is heightened and a new focus is realized. And this new focus, we call it a steady set point. And once you get that steady set point, it's like rising up in a tree. Your whole vantage point is different. Your whole awareness of yourself starts to change and you want more. And which is, you can guess, like, what were they thinking doing 700? Well, that's a whole nother, that's a whole nother webinar. But yeah, that's why we kept doing it, because we wanted to see where it would all go. So now this is a part that I really want you to remember. Is if you want to benefit from any of the movies we talk about today, if the movie that I'm going to discuss, or if someone has a request for a personal one, it's important that you do this intention session. So those of you that are watching us on Facebook Live, we'll see that you get a link to it. Or Google intention session, and we should be #1 at Peace of Mind Overtures. You'll find it. And I have it on our Facebook group, Peace of Mind Overtures, and it's on our website. But I wanted you to see this so that you could see what the statements are about. It's really about you raising your hand and saying, I want the work they did, but I want it on my terms with grace and ease. And we really knew we needed to create this because all of us are expanding and integrating in our own timing. And so we needed to respect that and the brilliance of that. And that's why we created the intention session. And then you see at the bottom, the modalities are 3 actions you're doing. You're telling your mind and your body, we're in. And so it's nod your head up and down, drink some water, and slow rhythmic breathing through your nose. So that's
Can I pause you there?
Yeah.
I'm gonna interrupt you because you're starting to get woo-woo here. And I just want to ask you about the woo-woo side of this, because not everybody has all the same beliefs here, David. And yet I have experienced for myself with my skeptical mind, the power of these alignment sessions. And it reminds me of anesthesiology. I read recently that we don't even know how anesthesia works. We use it, the patient goes out, we do our surgery, the patient wakes up, we've done it enough times, we know how to use it, but science has no idea how it works. And
it's fascinating.
It's still pretty important. So I think the work you're doing is important, but I want you to address the people who are having trouble with the beliefs here.
Okay, well, first of all, there's a whole quantum thing that's going on. It's not in my vocabulary, which is why I used prayer. It's why I used this social contagion stuff, because there's science and there's research around that is getting to our interconnectivity. And just a brief note on that. We don't really have a better example of our interconnectivity in all of our human history than what we're all experiencing right now. I mean, everything's being affected. The price of oil, the way we're interacting with each other, the way we're doing business. And from my perspective, just a side note, I think it's the beginning of a real powerful and positive reset. But from the woo-woo thing, which thank you for bringing that up, that really cracks me up. What we've done is essentially think about it as human software. And here, the movie we're going to talk about today, I actually showed, I wanted to bring you an example to see, and I guess you can't see it with my cool, my system, but there are several hundred intentions that we amplify, things that you want in your life and the things that you want to go better. And so because this interconnectivity is real, we were able to tap into it. And, you know, when I first learned about it, I was just like you, Blake. I was like, what? When Sue-Ann told me that you could do a Reiki session, I didn't even know what Reiki was in the 90s. Now I see it's in spas and stuff, so it seems to be more mainstream. And she said, well, we can proxy in anyone that wants to be a part of it. She said, we could proxy my mom from Sydney, Australia. And I'm like, what? And that's when it really came to us that, well, then why wouldn't we proxy this in as we go on a journey to peace of mind? And that's exactly what we were able to pull off. But Blake, we didn't have a roadmap for anybody to show us. We just were our own guinea pigs. So I don't know, does that answer your question, or anyone else want to chime in on that?
That's awesome. So I wrote down, I looked up the word alignment in the dictionary, and I wrote, so there's two. The first definition, of course, is ordered in an appropriate relative position. So you align something, you just line them up. But the best one, or the next one, I think is it's an agreement or an alliance. And I was thinking about that. If you can create an alliance between your consciousness and your subconscious, or between your actions and your intentions. And I think I took you right off track when you were about to go into some of that.
Not at all, actually, Blake. You lined it up beautifully for me, because really when we started trying to explain this to people, we said it was really about aligning the mind with the power of the heart. You know, the heart puts out 5,000 times more electromagnetic energy than the mind does. And there's neurons and glial cells in the heart that's the same as the brain. And so many of us think that this up here is driving this. And actually, the people at HeartMath have done, I don't know, 25, 30 years of research that says it's this that's driving this. And so if you are a leader watching this show, any kind of practice that you can do to help you get out of your head and into your heart, you're going to be able to tap into your emotions. You're going to be more strategic and more intuitive, and you're going to be more present for the people to be able to navigate the chaos that's going on right now. And fundamentally, that's what's needed from all of us. And so it's a great segue to go into the movie that we're going to talk about today. And I decided not to bring slides. I just wanted to go through 5 key benefits that you should realize when you watch this movie. And really the main benefit is if you just get some relief and you feel a little centered and a little balanced as you're watching the zaniness that's happening, then we've done our work. And so I know, Blake, you've done this movie session, and Mahesh has done it. So if you guys feel like chiming in and giving your experience, it'll just make this all better.
And
So
well, David, yes, I wanted to say something. I've done 2 alignment processes that David recommended. The first one was The Secret Life of Walter Mitty. And then the second one was the Lego movie. I have to say, even though I can't give you any explanation or anything about it, I can tell you after watching the first movie, I felt for days like I was more adventuresome, like I was more open to possibilities, and I couldn't explain it. And when I would let my mind rest, the movie would come to me and I would think about it. So it was almost like it was stuck in my head for days, and then it kind of went away. And the same thing happened with the Lego movie, but instead of that feeling of adventuresome, I felt more like I didn't have to follow rules, that I could be myself and be a hero. And it lasted for days and days. And again, when in quiet moments, that movie scenes would just pop into my head about the movie. So I think there's really something there going on. That would be my.
Patricia. Thank you. Do you want to say anything else?
That's all. That's what I have.
Oh, that's
I would recommend
exactly
it.
what it's about.
and then I'll guess the other thing I would say is, like, when you read a good fiction book, especially something crazy like science fiction or fantasy, where you're in a crazy world and you have to let go of your disbelief to enjoy the story. Do the same thing when you're doing the alignment processes. Just let go of that disbelief. Be open to a crazy fiction, anything. Just be open when you're watching it. I think it
That's
makes a
really
big difference.
perfect advice, Patricia. This is the whole point, is so that you elevate your awareness, so that you see possibilities or inspired action that you can step into. But in the past, we put these goggles on and we don't know any better. So it's not like there's something wrong with us. And this elevates your awareness so you can choose differently. So it's not like you wake up one day and you just go, okay, I'm healed and everything's perfect in my life. No, you actually start to notice where the next door of opportunity is to walk through. You recognize it. And I'm so glad that your description of it, Patricia, was perfect. So if anybody else doesn't have any other comments, I'm going to go right into talking about the movie.
Well, for
Okay,
me,
the
it was
Lego.
ritualistic. I just wanted to
What's
share
that?
that it was very ritualistic for me, and going through motions when it involves intent. That's where it's like my wife was saying, it's very easy for me to pause disbelief if I see something that's working with intention and ritual, because I think those things are incredibly powerful. You see pro athletes using ritual and intention to focus. I think it's guiding the mind, and so it's good stuff, David. Your alignment sessions, they work.
Thank you, Blake. Okay, so let's talk about the Lego movie. For those of you who haven't seen it, it's a 2014 computer animated comedy film written and directed by Phil Lord and Christopher Miller, from a story by Lord, Miller, and Dan and Kevin Hageman, I guess. And it's based on the Lego line of construction toys. The story focuses on ordinary Lego minifigures, which we've all seen in commercials now, who find themselves helping a resistance to stop a tyrannical businessman from gluing everything in the Lego world into his vision of perfection. So we're in the Lego world and they're trying to glue it down so that it never changes. Now, I get it. You're thinking about this movie right now, and you probably are about the way I was, because we don't sit back and go, humanity needs a movie about this, and then we go to look to it. No, the movie comes to us and it becomes our teacher. And I did not want to watch this movie the first time, and I didn't want to create it as a session. So if you're like that too, I understand. But then when you get deep into the movie and you see it from the context of what we're all going through right now, you kind of go, wow, there's some wisdom here. So the first key benefit that I want you to get from this movie, and is definitely in these amped intentions, is that anything new creates chaos first. So, if you're going to make a garden and you're going to go from a vegetable garden to flowers, you got to tear up the garden. Many of us have had our kitchens and our homes renovated. It's a mess. And even while you're going through the mess of whatever it is you're creating, a renovation in the house, do you remember the feeling of unsettledness and the chaos of it all, and how sometimes you feel like it's never going to get better, and how you have to just keep moving through it? Well, the Lego movie helps you get to see what that's like. And think about the way kids play with Legos. They like to build them and then they just tear them apart and start all over again. And so in the context of what's going on with us, that's what I see is happening. That's why I was very excited and passionate about wanting to talk to this movie about this movie to anyone that wants to listen and give it a try. So in our book, we talked about this movie a little bit from the context of Pandora. When Pandora's box opens, we always see Pandora's boxes, the pestilence and the disease and the chaos that happened. But, more recently we're seeing this, but for the most part, the story was never included about the word ellipsis, which is Greek for hope, that's at the bottom of the box. And so when you're going through any kind of chaos, simplicity, the kitchen's being ripped up, you got to have hope to get through it. And it's what's needed in these times right now, is to give your brain some relief that we're going through change, and to stay in hope that everything's going to be okay. And so while I bring up the brain, let's talk about the next key point. And the next key benefit of this is to allow your brain to integrate. And so how? What do I mean by allow your brain to integrate? So whenever you go through changes, your mind, the way we're wired, the synapses and everything have to literally rewire. So if those of you that's moved from one part of the country, we moved from Georgia to Plano, Texas here, and then moved to Michigan, then moved back to Plano. And while you're doing it, your mind has to rewire. Think about what it has to do. It has to learn how to get to the office in a new way. It needs to find its new grocery stores. And while you're doing that, it's tremendous change. And if you push it too much, here's what happens. You start to get a lot of anxiety, you have sleep problems, and you have depression. And if that's happening, that's an awareness for you to say, okay, it's too much. I need to take a pause. And so in this movie, there is a lot of alignment intentions around not pushing it too hard, taking a break, and recognizing that there's nothing wrong with you. You're just trying to integrate the change. Early in our work, we learned that everything in the universe is expansion and integration. Expansion and integration. Think of it as the ocean and how it expands and it comes back. And so much we want growth, 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 growth. And we go against nature, but we never really allow the integration. And look at the massive integration that's going on right now. We've all been shut down. And so while that's happening, allow your brain to integrate and find its new normal. And so that takes me to the next point, is to trust your instincts. Because and you're going to see it in the movie. It's pretty funny. They talk about their instincts and they work on it. And so recently I started something I want to share with you. Every day I start my day, first 10 minutes of the day, maybe 15, doing meditation. And you hear a lot of people talking about that now. For me, I see it as getting online. And when I do that, I'm tapping into a resource that guides me through the day. And so I teach my clients to do this also, and it helps you stay centered and balanced. And I'm not talking about a guided meditation. I'm talking about simply centering yourself and watching your breathing. And so what I started recently, and I really want to give it out to you also, is if you start a practice like that, I've started just asking, what is it that I need to know today? Just today. Now, sometimes I get inspired thoughts that come through to me that are out of the blue, but other times it's 3, 4, 5 hours later, and I get this idea. Now, I have done this so often that I know for sure it's me getting online in the morning that's doing that, because you know why I know it's for sure? When I don't get the inspired action. And so it's really an important thing. And when you can get online in the morning like this, you will be able to recognize your instincts. But a lot of times we can't, because this is going crazy up here. And then we can't figure out what this is trying to say. That takes me to the next point. Fear is way bigger than this virus that we're dealing with right now. And I believe it's going to cause way more damage, because when you're in fear, fear's a state of mind. It's not an emotion like most of us think. And when you're in that state of mind, you really don't have any connection to your emotional system. And when you don't have connections to your
Can I stop you on that fear point? I'm sorry to interrupt you there. But I just wanted to tell anybody who hasn't seen the Lego movie, this is a kid's movie. And I wanted to ask you about the fear part, because this movie is terrifying, okay? Or it started off terrifying me. Wow, they're starting to sing this song that is everything is awesome, and they're all dancing around and they're singing this song, everything is awesome. And it's the power of positive thinking on steroids times 10, spread all the way through this very plastic, very superficial, artificial Lego world. And it's like a dystopic sci-fi. Yes. And so it's a very interesting place for a kid's movie to start and for an alignment session to start.
Yeah.
So when I started talking about fear, I immediately thought of that.
Well, and you remember in the movie, Blake, they're trying to find the piece of resistance. Is that it? PIECE, of resistance. And so as you're dealing with the fear that's going on, the way to get out of it, and by the way, this session is going to help with the fear to releasing it. There are statements in here that help you let go of your resistance to change, a realization that nothing stays the same, a remembering that there's no such thing as perfect, and everything isn't always awesome, right, Blake? A softening of the fear that's usually present while integrating the chaos of a new pattern, an ability to let go and allow what is changing with grace and ease, and a remembering to be flexible, and most importantly, a desire to bring peace to the change that's before you. So it's sort of a twist on the what's going on in the movie. Bring peace to the resistance. There's tremendous resistance to what's going on in this change that we're having. There is going to be change in everything that we do, from the way we conduct commerce, to the way we see our politics, to the way we see how we take care of each other. In fact, we're going to see our circle of trust of our families most likely expand and be more inclusive. And so in this session, there's a lot in here to help you like here. And so finally, the last point that I really want to make, and it's in this session, and you'll see it in the movie, that we all have a contribution to make, every single one of us. Now, when I'm saying that, I don't mean you need to go out there and start up some kind of an organization or do something big. It can be as simple as getting online in the morning, getting into your heart and loving other people. If we're really connected, like science has shown, then you staying centered and balanced and in compassion and not buying into the fear is going to have a positive effect on others. And then if you can continue to do this, you will get inspired action on what's the next logical step for you to go through. What will be the most beneficial? You don't have to go out there and find it. It's come to you. What I want to encourage you is that every one of us has something here to serve humanity. And it can be as simple as just being more loving with yourself is going to make a positive impact. So now when you're watching this alignment movie process, or AMP session is what we're calling them, remember, you got to do the intention session first so that you get the benefits on your terms with grace and ease. Second, you got to watch the entire movie. So it's not uncommon for you to watch the movie and you're sitting back and it's 8 o'clock at night and everything's fine. And you're watching, and about halfway through, all of a sudden it's like this. You literally check it out. And Blake's smiling because I think this happened to you, Blake, didn't it? I bring it up is because if you wake up and then try to push through it and really, you're going to make it happen, get through the rest of the movie session, it's going to be a little harder on you. And so that's a sign to say, oh, we're taking a break. We'll come back to this movie later. And the same thing too is if you're watching the movie and you find yourself almost like fingernails on a chalkboard, like you're really annoyed, take a break. This isn't about learning how to run a marathon. Everything we created here was to help people come into alignment with grace and ease. And so another thing, that just one little quick tip before I wrap it up, after watching the film, maybe 3 or 4 days later, get in the tub and soak with some Epsom salt. It helps the body integrate. Remember, it's expansion and integration, And all of us are going through the integration right now. And so support your body with the best food you can eat, get it plenty of rest, and soak when you feel drawn to it. Now, before I go and open it up to questions, Blake, I just wanted to let everyone know that's watching this that I really do feel for everyone that we're going through right now, and I want to be of service. So if you would like a personal alignment movie session you're comfortable sharing with us today, please do. And if it comes to me right away, I'll give it to you. Otherwise, I normally charge about $100 for a 30-minute quick session, but from now till May 1, it's going to be free for a 30-minute session. I really want to help anybody that wants it. And anyone that needs a full hour, I've cut that in half. And so that's $100 for a full hour. But my intent here is to serve. And if you're drawn to this work, please join us at Peace of Mind Overtures Facebook group, or sign up for our emails on our website, peaceofmindovertures.com. And with that said, Blake, I turn it over to you and questions, and anyone else.
I want to get back to the movie for just a second, because I want to talk about some of the things that went through my mind when I finished the movie and when I started thinking about the movie. One of the first things that I thought was that Lego rhymes with let go.
Oh, that's perfect.
It's like this Will Ferrell guy, all these characters that Will Ferrell plays, I've heard him talk about his character, and they all have unfounded confidence, right? Confidence that they have no right to have. And so this is another one of those great characters where he just leads his life with expectation. He just absolutely expects, and he puts that forward. And his latest expectation is that he will achieve perfection and then glue it down.
Yeah.
And that's a setup. That's a setup for some disappointment. And I want to pick on Mahesh here in a minute too, but I'd like to hear your comments about that.
Well, you're right about that, and I got such a kick out of it. Will Ferrell helps us laugh at ourselves, because all of us have these areas where we refuse to change. And many times when I look at what's going on in the world, and you say, "Oh, the way people are behaving is kind of concerning." Well, one of the things I think about is the belovable character Archie Bunker, and Archie Bunker's a lot like what you're talking about, Will Ferrell. If you think about Archie Bunker, he didn't want any kind of change. And the things he railed against and the good diversity and the things that were happening scared him. And he was a lovable guy. Any of us would love to have dinner with Archie Bunker, but he was not PC. And I think what we're seeing also is this resistance that you're going to see in the movie is essentially bunkerism. We see it on the cable channels pushing back. We see it from our politicians. We see it from the business leaders. And there's a tremendous amount of bunkerism, but it's rooted, I think, in a lot in fear, and they don't want to see the change. And I just want to say it over and over again. I think the change is going to be very good for all of us, and we're going to discover a new set point that is going to be really pleasing. But yeah, as we go through this chaos, it can be uncomfortable. So yeah, Blake, you're perfect on this. I just see it as Will Ferrell's character is classic bunkerism.
Hey, David, I would like to share a little bit of what my experience with you in these movies are. And I'll tell you a couple of things off the bat. When I first met you, and I thought that was such a great idea to use movies to show role models, I did some research, and in Psychology Today, I did find an article that talked about how movies were being used to kind of show people in a separated, unemotional way of how things can be, or how different types of personalities react. And over the years, what I've noticed is that I think back when I first came to the States and I watched, I was one of those latchkey kids, both parents worked, and that's not how I grew up in India. So the TV really programmed a lot of my belief systems in.
Yeah.
And so as I watched these movies, and I'm like, okay, like a lot of the movies you give me I feel really uncomfortable. And it's taken me a while to get through it, because I'll watch it, I'll have to incorporate a little bit, then I'll watch it some more, and so forth. And I've told you that. I'm like, hey, this is really hard for me to watch. And I can tell that something's going on in the background, because I will have, different emotions. And now when I watch TV or when I watch movies, I don't watch it the same way. I watch it in a very different way. I'm very aware of what it's kind of, subconsciously trying to program me for. And so I find that whole process with you has been fascinating. But in regards to this movie, I found two things that really stuck in my head. Number one is this master builder, number one, always needed plans, right? And then when he got off the plans, he didn't really build complicated things. He built simple things, like a couch that was a double-decker couch, and and it was his truth, and it worked for him. And then down the road, you find out that it's the only thing that floated, and so it saved everybody's life, or they were able to hide it, and it saved everybody's life. So as I'm making progress in things, I don't have to think about, like, I need a home run, I need something really huge, just the little steps, the little steps. And that's what I've been thinking about, it's like, okay, what little step can I do today? What little step can I do today? So that's what's interesting about these movies. Not everybody walks away with the same lesson or walks away from the same perspective, which I think is really pretty unique. And to look and observe some of these things in a detached way, even though I get emotional about it, and it's okay, it's a movie, let me get detached and let me observe. And so sometimes when you observe, you can incorporate things. And you know, one of the things that I've learned over going to these classes with NLP and Tony Robbins stuff, as a child, how you learn is by observing. You know, you're sitting there, you're just watching and listening, and you're seeing how a mom should behave, and you're seeing how a dad should behave, and you know, you're coming up with your belief system of what a good person should be, and you're getting contradictory information all the time. And so as an adult, you're sitting there going, yeah, I should do this, but I don't feel good in doing this, or you know, like what's going on. And so a lot of the movies that you've given me have kind of helped me pull that apart, you know, in small ways. And so it's had a big effect on me, to say the least. But for the Lego movie, it was those two components. And then the last component is there's no fun without change.
It's true.
You know, if life is so static, I mean, you might as well be in hell. Every day is exactly like the next day. You don't even know what day is it today, because there's no difference. What decade is it? You know. So it's been fascinating. And one of the other things that I got from this movie that I started doing for some reason is I started going and I loaded my pictures up to Google Photos, and I started looking at all the different decades. You know, like, oh, these are the 80s and these are the 90s and these, I mean, they're different, right? And every one of those decades had different stress points, and it was okay. It'll all be okay. And that song is so creepy and fantastic. It'll all be okay. We're all doing great. So that's what I wanted to share.
Everything is awesome.
That'll stick in your head. Mahesh, thank you for your comments. And your comment about change always baffles me too, because not the comment, the word change. It's like, it's such a weird word for us because we all want it, but none of us really want it. I mean, we want the change, but as soon as it starts to happen, we freak out. And, you know, I think humanity's wanted change for a very long time, and it's now upon us. And so it's incumbent upon all of us to figure out, you know, how do we get into the heart and be available to make a contribution. And Mahesh, I love what you had to say about your experience, it being unique. I've worked with hundreds of people, and none of them have had the same experiences I have. And for me, it reinforces the unique, magnificent brilliance of each one of us. And it is so needed right now. And so the more of us come in alignment with that brilliance of us, we're going to find solutions to these problems we've never seen before in the most amazing ways. And so for right now, we're getting the opportunity to get back into our hearts again. And so, so I really love what you had to say about the uniqueness of the experience for everybody. Thank you, Mahesh. And
the relationship between change and fun. I love that because growth is change and change is growth, and glue kills the fun.
Yeah, stop watching Glue TV. That news on that station, it's not fun. So just stop watching it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we have a different person every week, and I will have David on again because we're talking about change, and we're going through a lot of them, and changes are accelerating right now. And I feel like, I'm an agent. I'm into agency. I feel like in a lot of ways, you're our agent for change, David.
Thank you.
You help us.
Happy to be.
The thing about change is while you're going through it, you're in the middle of it and you can't see the other side. And that's what creates the anxiety, is the coping with the change as it's happening. And I just want to tell you that I really enjoy our conversations. I treasure them. I think that you have a fantastic perspective. And I would encourage anyone to reach out to you and visit a bit. Even if you're not interested in an alignment session, learn a little bit about what David is working on in his perspective, because it'll really open your eyes and change your mind about a few things. So
thank you, Blake. And one of the things to add about the change thing real quickly is that we need each other to help us cross the threshold of our own unique change. And your change, Blake, isn't as scary to me as my change is to you. I mean, and so when we can reach out to someone and help them cross the threshold, and I don't care if it's just simply applying for that position that maybe you've always wanted, or going on Facebook Live. And so if we can be there for each other to help, we'll get across the bridge much quicker. So we have about 10 more minutes left. Anyone here have any kind of a request for a specific movie? Or I don't know if Facebook, we have any requests coming through, but I'd be happy to talk about it if you're comfortable telling me what's up. And if not, we can do this offline. Most of my social media is Peace Overtures. And that's how you can also get to my schedule. It's on Instagram, it's on the Facebook group, it's on Peace Overtures business page, and it's also on our website. But I mean it when I say I want to help with some movies. If you have something specific and you're comfortable sharing. If not, let's do it offline.
Hey, David,
Yeah, Tom.
I don't have a memory like I used to, but you recommended a movie to me a while back about startup companies. And my wife and I
Yeah.
sitting one night, I got to tell you, it was the story of my life. It's like somebody interviewed
Sure.
me and made the movie as a result of it. It was incredible.
Thank
And
you,
it was a
Tom.
really good movie.
Was it the movie Joy?
Yes. It was the thing I thought was interesting as much as anything was a really good movie.
It's a great movie. And
Yeah.
it's for a startup, why it's appropriate is because it's about conflict management, the alignment session is. And we went to SMU's conflict resolutions program and used about 3 or 4 books from it to put in the intention session. So when you're going through anything new and trying to create a new business, just like you'll see in the movie Joy, you've got negotiations you got to go through. You got shenanigans that we get to see that happens with her supplier, and to get the resonance to support staying in the game through the uncomfortableness of the negotiations or the conflict is definitely in the movie Joy. But there's one other thing in there, Tom, that all startups, in fact, all of us need right now, and it's resilience. So I went to some experts on resilience, and we put that in the session. And Joy is such a great example of what resilience looks like. I just learned the other day a definition of resilience being, we think it's being able to keep up, but it's also being able to restore and to renew. And we get to see that in the movie Joy. And so, Tom, thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah, they really ran her through the ringers. And I got to tell you, I went through all the ringers she went through in that movie, including intellectual property theft and all that stuff. And
okay, so it was perfect. Now, see, I wouldn't have known any of that. So that's how this works when you work with me. It just comes to me. And then I don't realize later, deep in the session, that it's something like that is going on for you. And so thanks for bringing that up. That's really great.
And it was a really great movie too. It was in the theaters. I don't even know why I didn't go see it. But anyway, thank you.
Anyone else?
David, can you hear me?
I can hear you, Mahesh.
Yeah. So when Tom, you were talking, I remembered that in my MBA program, which was over 15 years ago, we watched a movie called 12 O'Clock High with Gregory Peck, and we learned about leadership and corporate executives and decisions, and we analyzed the hell out of that movie. And it's a movie that I still think about today when I have to make decisions in regards to certain situations. I mean, you watch the movie, and it's an interesting movie. So that's the first time that I ever saw a movie where they were teaching us, roles on behavior and strategies. It was very interesting to see it from that perspective.
That's really great. I'll check that out. I've never heard of it.
Say the name of the movie again.
12 O'Clock High with Gregory Peck. I've got it up here. It's when did it come out?
There must be way too many young people on this thing. 12 O'Clock High was like, who doesn't-
1960.
Yeah. It was a World War II movie.
Right.
Great movie.
It's about how an executive that's in charge of this squadron, and when Americans were bombing Germany, they were shooting down bombers like left and right. We're doing daytime strategic bombing, and so he was losing people all the time. And the guy before him just cracked under the pressure and just couldn't do it. And so he comes in and he's got to be this hard ass, and what choices he's making, and how much he loves his company. And you're like, he just hates everybody. It's just an incredible, if you start analyzing it, it's an incredible movie. It's well written, it's well done. It just gives me chills when I think about it.
I'll check it out. Thank you.
Yeah.
Probably a better movie for the company to be studying together than, say, Wall Street or Boiler Room.
I think it depends. I think everything depends on the individual and on the environment. I think flexibility is important. And so these things that I know from my perspective, when David tells me something, I get it. I mean, you've got something going on, David, because you can tell that I'm stuck in an area. And so he gives me this movie that I can feel it's going to break me up a little bit, and it's going to give you a little bit more flexibility. And that's what I'm looking for, because that's how I survive and change, right? If you're so stuck with that glue, you're not going to be able to change. You're not going to be able to, you're going to resist it, and your body's not going to work. Your emotions are all tightened up, but you let go a little bit, and it's about thinking differently. It's all really it is. And whether, and I know also that neurons are all over our body. I mean, you got a gut that's got so many neurons. You feel that tightness going on. That's not healthy. You got to figure out a way to move past that. And I think David's got a really great way of doing it. So
thank you.
It's been interesting. It's been interesting.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you, David.
Really appreciate your comments. You're welcome. It's been my pleasure.
Yeah, it's very timely stuff, David. And it's always such a pleasure to visit with you. And I think that whenever we can find a ritual that will help us focus our intention and use what I think of the movies, it sounds hokey at first, but this is a very powerful heuristic, right? It helps us to interpret life through the Greek mythos, right? These are the myths in our life that help us make sense of our reality. And mythos is a powerful God, right? That's something we all need. We have to have our stories. We have to have our way of making sense. And so this is not lightweight, light level stuff. When you put your intentions into your openness to something which is actually mythos, it's a story, but you're open to how the guidance within that story is going to teach you through a message. I would say that qualifies as life-changing stuff. It's not to be underestimated what that can do for you.
Blake, every time I talk to you, I learned something too. Same with you, Mahesh, and all of you. That was really great. And it made me think, the times we're living in now, we are creating the new cultures. We'll look back on these times and we'll be saying, well, in my day. And so, I mean, to think if we can step into this change with heart, with loving people, with loving ourselves, who knows where this could go. So just to
question for you, Tom. How many days are there in April? And it's like day 90 or 120 or something. I mean,
I don't know. I think there's 30.
Oh, really? I'll tell you, this is for me, it's a Tomorrowland.
It's like a long.
Anyway, good to see you today.
Good to be with all of you today, and thank you for hearing my story. And I really hope you give the Lego movie a try. Make sure you do the intention session first. And if you don't have it and can't find it, just reach out to me. I'll get it to you. And then what would be really fun for me, and I think for the rest of us, is to come back to the feed at BizEnergize or wherever you find us right now and tell us about your experience. Because every single one of you that watched this movie, I learned something new about it today that I didn't know. And now I'm going to have that in my awareness for the rest of this week. So I thank you. And so the others, please make your contribution and teach us too. We all need it right now.
Absolutely. And thank you so much, David. And if all of you could, we're going to be sharing some great content here on BizEnergize Dallas. So if you could invite a few friends to the group, over on the side, you can go through the alphabet and find some friends that you think might enjoy this kind of content. We're going to be doing this every Thursday at noon. And I just wanted to remind Tom Allen, Tom, you look great sitting in that chair, but if you're not wearing any pants, end the meeting. Wait till the meeting ends before you stand up, okay? That's an important Zoom tip for all of you. And
I've got some good news for you. I'm fully dressed.
nice.
But I have seen several people that I cannot unsee now. I mean,
Oh
I
my God.
really can't even believe some of the things I've seen.
Next, go ahead, David, or whoever.
Blake, I just included in the chat box the intention session, and then anybody that wants to grab it right now, do it before we end, because I learned this on a Zoom call one time. The guy gave me his address and all kinds of important information, and then we got off the Zoom call, and I was like, no! So grab the intention session now if you want it, so you can have it on your computer. And by the way, you only need to do it once. And if you follow me on any of the social media, you'll see I've got a lot of samples out there. I don't know how many, and we've got some 45 podcasts on Peace. It's called Peace Overtures Radio. It's on Google Podcasts, it's on iTunes, it's on Spotify. So you can go there just on your own journey after doing this intention session and find a movie that's helping you with relationships, or maybe it's about leadership, or maybe it's fear of money, or maybe it is about the environment and you're concerned about that, or coming together in unity. We have them all up there. They're free and they're for you to use. So it's been a pleasure to be with you all. And I'm so grateful for your warmth and sharing your experience with me today. It means a lot to me. Thank you.
Thank you. And